One of the things that John Amplis said reminded me was that the family. It's just, for how many things I've done, it's just almost inconceivable that we still have this closeness. And any other projects that I've done, sure, I'm friends with the people, but it's not this feeling. It's not like this. And I get it from all of you too. It's not just the people who were in the film. One of the things that Howard was saying that I agree with was, I was lucky enough to do 3 films with George, and I always felt it was a collaboration. That we were working together, and yet he had something that, and I think you said this too, respect. And the first film I worked on was Night Riders, and I was just like the true magician, and I was doing these silly things with scarves, and I said, I went up, I thought, you know what, it would be really cool to do something with coins, like pull coins from somebody's nose or something, and I can't even remember who it was. It could have even been Stephen King, I can't remember. Somebody was in the crowd, and I immediately went up to George and suggested that maybe we could do a scene where I pull all these coins out of somebody's nose, and he said, sure, well, let's try it. And so he actually filmed it, and I was blown away. Later in Day of the Dead, in the last scene where Logan turns off the light, Richard Liberty, I suggested the whimpering, and he went along with it, and because he respected the actor, he respected me as an actor, and as a person, and he was a sensational person. The one story I want to tell you, though, that is sort of humorous was I worked on Creepshow, and the last segment I was the character of Carl Reynolds, and E.G. Marshall was the star. George brought me into the set and introduced me. He said, "This is E.G. Marshall. This is Mark Tierno," and I stuck out my hand to E.G. Marshall, to Mr. Marshall, and he was wearing the rubber gloves, and he said, "Oh, sorry, I'm sterile." And I said, I don't know where this came from. I said, "Well, perhaps you can adopt." I think if I had thought of it for another 5 seconds, I would not have said it, because I looked over and George's jaw just dropped. Here I was with his star. But he was a wonderful person, and he also influenced my life. And I'm very, 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 very grateful. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we have a fan to step out. Oh, I should say a fan and act. I'll adjust this.
Good morning. In 1984, I met George Romero for the first time, and I had the distinction of playing the football player zombie in Day of the Dead in the scenes that were shot on Sanibel Island down in Florida where I live. And I was only 20 at the time, and when I first heard about this was 6 months after graduating from high school, and my media specialist, who taught me the videography and the photography that you see me do now, he says, Michael, your your George Romero, who made Night of the Living Dead, is coming to Florida to make a sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. I know that George makes most of his films in Pittsburgh. And so I called Kyra Schoen from Night of the Living Dead, who we've been friends since we were teenagers, and we would call each other and write. And I said, Kyra, is it true? Is George making a film in Fort Myers? She said, yes, he's making a sequel to Day of the Dead on Sanibel Island. The name of his company is Sanibel Films. She says, here's the number. Give him a call and tell him you want to be in the movie. So I didn't, you're 20 years old, I picked up the phone and I called the number, and George himself answered the phone, and I told him who I was and who had referred me. And he says, okay, no problem, just leave me your number. I will have my wife, Christine, call you back because she's helping with the casting. And Christine called me back, and then she referred me to Gary Bratz, who was doing the casting locations for the zombies in Fort Myers, and I got the job as the football player zombie. And when I showed up, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I think I was the youngest extra there. And I was 20 at the time, but I looked like I was 15 or 16. And I heard the other extras in the background whispering, look at that little boy over there. He doesn't look like he's 18. I don't think, but... And so the sun is just coming up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's Tom Savini standing next to Christine, and he's looking over, and there I am in front of the crowd with this grin, like this, and he says, I'm going to start with you. That's Tom Savini. So he did the basic makeup on me and whatnot, and now I'm finding out from the fans and other crew members, Michael, you were probably one of the most recognized zombies in Day of the Dead. We can really see your face good. So anyhow, the costume designer comes over, and she has a very unique situation with me being so short. And she says, here's the jersey that you're going to be wearing, and she gave me the helmet, and I changed, and I put everything on. But unfortunately, the jersey did not fit properly the way that it was supposed to fit. Mailbox 22 is supposed to be along the back with the number, and the number is supposed to be on the front. It wouldn't fit. She's like, oh my God, and I'm like, I really want to be, she goes, just relax. She goes, turn the jersey, so she turned the jersey around. And that is how Mailbox 22 can be seen across the front. It wasn't supposed to be that way, but it didn't fit properly. So we're getting ready to do the scene coming through the gates where Miguel is attacked on the platform. Now, these were the set of zombies that day before the special effects scene where they cut down below and then cut back up, and then they do all the effects stuff with Miguel. Well, George is standing there. He's directing the scene. Mike Gornick is standing right next to him with the camera, and we're shooting the gates coming, the scenes coming through the gate. And I come through the gate, and finally George says, cut! And he says, mailbox 22, come here. And I figured, that's great. This is my first job. I'm fired, that's it, I'm done. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the other stories that people are telling about how good George was, especially about new people, especially about young people. And I came over to him, he says, Michael, what you did was great, but I had a wristwatch which was in the shot. He says, your wristwatch is in the shot, and that's going to be a problem. So I took it off, and the makeup people came over and they touched up the spot where the watch was. And he says, now, everything that you just did coming through the gate, I want you to do it exactly the way that you did it, because it was great. So we shot the scene again. I came through the gate. You can see my arm extend. And then it wasn't intentional, but when we came up on the platform there where Miguel was laying there before the pre-special effects, you can see my hand, come down. And that's the last shot before they cut down below and then they cut back up. But, and that is the scene that you see in the movie. But, and even though that was the only time that I have ever worked with George professionally, it had a lasting impression because he was just so amicable and so nice and so patient. And I only had to do it one more time. So, thank you very much.
Good morning, all you lovely people, and you are. It is a family. Lori and I talk about it all the time. Howard, Tim, John, all of us. Right after George passed away, I was sitting at my kitchen table in Connecticut. And I wrote like 4 from the heart pages. I have them with me, but I can't top what I've been listening to. I actually was feeling like that kid in grammar school, and I'm kind of shirking my duty, and that kid in front of you is going, "Teacher, I got the answer. I got the answer." And I would kind of go, like this, because you didn't want to get called on. And I am just blown away by the love that comes through every person that I've heard here. The intelligence, the beauty, the love, it's astounding. I am humbled. I am so honored to be here at the event over the weekend, but particularly here for George. And I am, they say that brevity is the soul of wit. I'm not a very witty man, and sometimes I run a little long, so I will be brief. And in 1983, I was lucky enough to open 2 shows on Broadway. And then when you open a show on Broadway, everybody runs across the street to Sardi's, and you wait for the New York Times to come. And that review makes or breaks the show. Well, guess what? I closed 2 shows in one night. One with Elliot Gould and one with Carol O'Connor. Amazing, isn't it, folks? Show business. Show business. So 83 was a great year in a way, but it was also kind of a down year, because we all want to be successful. We all want to be loved. And then 1984 came, and I met George. I knew of George's work, but, I wasn't a particular fan of the horror genre. And I meet George, and I went in, and I read. But I met him. It was very comfortable. And I was reading for Rhodes. And George somehow, I won't go too